And um, this morning is our last Texas Power Up of this year. We have seen each other, you guys, 44 times this year for Texas Power Ups. And it's just been such a blast seeing all your faces, anywhere from 75, 80, 85, 90 people every week. And I want to give a shout out to all the people on this call that hit their goals this year and they had financial wins, right? And I want to give a shout out to the people who built new habits this year, new routines, just really took a stand, right, for themselves and fought through like the chaos, right, and learned a lot this year. And then just shout out to all the people who are still learning, still growing, still pushing, myself included, the ones that are reinventing themselves, like to be the person, like Ben says, be the person their dreams require. So I want to jump into Texas stats now that we've had 11 and a half months worth of data, so you can see how you're winning and what you've been doing and how collectively we're accomplishing a lot. Everything that you see that happens collectively is the result of each individual, and everyone is so important on this team. You can see that 76 agents is where we were at this time last year. We are at 105 agents. So way to go, everyone that is choosing real estate as their path to their preferred future. We are up 38%. We've got 11 people in launch. And if that's you, launch is so important and so foundational to building the right habits and routines for your business. Listings, you can see that it is the only red part on our tracking. We were at 130 listings last year. We were at 63 listings as of this Monday. And you know what the interesting thing is? It's our days on market haven't really shifted, at least in Austin, right? Last year we were at like 8 days on market. This year we're at like 8 days on market. So it's not that that's shifted. We just, obviously want more market share. That's why we have Marc today to talk to us about listing market share. So it's going to be a good conversation. Buyer reps, 344 to 456. We're up 32%. Pending contracts, we're also up 31%. We are at 222 pending contracts. What that means is there's probably a lot closing right now, the next couple of weeks, and we probably have some closing for next year. Whatever your magic number is that you want to walk into 2022 with, maybe that's 10%, 15%, 20% of your goal of next year. If you mail it in the next 2.5 weeks, that could become a challenge, right? You'll fall into that like January and February trap of like not having enough closing. So what I'm not saying is like totally forego all family time, all of that. No. I'm telling you though, like that 8:30 to 12:30 every day, like nobody really needs you that bad at home. Like, I mean, maybe they do if you've got kids, but most of you don't even have kids, right? And so that 8:30 to 12:30 is really a good time for you to build your business, follow up, like Elizabeth said. I bet you there's so much in brevity for you to do. Pending volume, it's a beauty. 101 million pending right now, up 71%. The whole market is up. So don't get me wrong. I get it. The market is up. It's not just us, right? However, the market's up in any of our areas, probably 40% max. 71% is you guys. So like that extra 30 is your bump, your hard work. And our average price point right now on pendings is 455,000. Way to go. We have closed 1,248 units so far this year. We'll probably get another 100 closings in by the end of the year, by the way. It's like there's a lot set for closing. Up 46%, again, beating the market. It's a new record for us. Closed volume, 453 million. That means that by the end of the year, we will hit the $500 million mark, which is a new area for us. Up 79%. Average close price was 363. Here's my very, very favorite. We have closed $12.8 million in gross commission income, up 86%. But why that's so cool and so important is look at this commission rate, you guys. 2.82 per side is our average. Like this is not normal. When you see these kind of numbers, this should be like 2.25, 2.5. You guys are not just selling a lot of real estate, you're really skilling up. You're attending all the place trainings, you're going to your power ups, you're coaching with your leader. I mean, it's incredible. 2.82, you guys, awesome job. We've paid out 6.4 million to our agents this year, also up 86%. We're basically averaging like $100,000 a week or more. It's kind of crazy. So congratulations on an awesome year. I wanted to tell you guys that. And then January 6th, when we come back, I'll give you the entire, like, what happened in 2021? How did we win? So that you can also think about and celebrate that together. So way to go. I love that. Now, this morning, we have Marc Pollak from Wilmington, Delaware, joining us. And if you don't know Marc, he is one of the top agents at Place. He is closing 53 units. So this is the part where you want to like write something down. 53 units this year. 24 of them are buyers. 29 of them are sellers. And he's got an awesome pipeline of sellers signed that will go active like anytime now into 2022. So Marc joined Place this year in February and really dived in starting like, I don't know, summertime. It all takes us a little bit of time to like really like decide, okay, what is it that we're motivated by? Let's go. So the reason I thought that this conversation would be beneficial for all of us is because he's focused on the one domino that knocks over all the other dominoes, which is listings, right? And so listings allow us to control our time, our price point, and they're the best leverage to create more business and credibility in the marketplace, right? Like it's great if we help 50 buyers, but 50 sellers gains us more credibility. It's just the way that our markets work, right? So Marc, I am going to find you on my screen. I'm going to spotlight you for everyone. Thank you for being here this morning. It's awesome. Welcome, Delaware.
Thank you. How you doing?
Man, we're doing good. So just talk to us about your story. Like you started with Place this year, right?
Yeah, I started with Place in February, and the month before I was actually at the point of saying, you know what? After 30 years after graduating University of Delaware and wanting to get back here, after 3.5 years or 3 years, whatever it was, I was going back to Jersey because it wasn't happening.
Your sales weren't happening?
I wasn't doing a blessed thing here in Delaware hardly. I think I probably sold 5 or 6 houses in Delaware. I was still selling in Jersey. I still had 30, 40 units left, the year before 2020 up in central Jersey that I was selling. And yet my Delaware business was basically a goose egg. My partner, Mike, said to me, go out and talk to a bunch of different expansion teams and see about bringing them to the market center. Never mentioned joining one, never mentioned becoming a part of one. So I talked to several, and my conversation with Brady was just off the charts. And that was in December. And then January, we did career visioning, KPA, et cetera, and we made the commitment to bring Place here to the Christiana office here in Delaware.
So have you been in real estate? Like, have you been in real estate a really long time, or like, what'd you even do before real estate? How'd you even get to this point, I guess?
By accident. So I owned martial arts schools for about 15 years. I started my martial arts business in the late 90s, built it up to 200-300 students. And in 2009, I sold my karate schools. And then in 2006, my accountant had told me, if you want to take depreciation on your investment properties, you need to have a real estate license. He mentioned attorney and contractor, but it sounded like those might take a little more time. So my goal was to be the world's worst realtor from 2006 to 2009, because I had no intention of selling real estate. I was teaching martial arts. I was wearing pajamas and kicking things. So I was doing that. I ended up selling 3-4 properties from 2006 to the middle of 2009. So I failed at being the world's worst realtor because we all know people who sold 0. And then from there, in 2009, in middle of 2009, my wife said to me, you know what? You're not home for the kids. You're not around. You're working, 12, 14, 16 hours a day at the martial arts school. Sell it. You have a real estate license. Why don't you use that? Because we all know realtors don't work long hours. So I sold the karate school. It closed June 30th of 09. I got serious about real estate in May of 09. And I had to get good at real estate really, really quickly because my then wife asked for the divorce in August of 09. And I made sure that my kids had a roof over their head. I made sure that she had a house, and I went to live with my parents and just fought my way back up, and, got to the point of $0, got to the point of, the point where, the people out there on the street with saying, I've got nothing, I've got nothing. I had about $10,000 in debt. I told them, I'm envious of you. I owe 10 grand. So, how did you get to zero? I need to know. And so I was basically more month at the end of the money every single month. And then finally in February, I think it was, of 2011, it was, enough is enough. That was my never again moment. And I just said, I'm never going to have more month at the end of my money than money at the end of my month. And, got into bold. I've taken it now 13 times. I've redshirted as a bold coach. The travel was just going to be a bit too much. Yes, I'm remarried, have a business to run here on the East Coast, and coaching bold would have just taken way too much out of me. So I decided to focus on just my real estate business at that point.
Got it. Wow, 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 wow. Okay, and then what got you back to Delaware? How'd you get back there? Because you would have to restart your business. I just want everybody to understand, it's like taking all y'all and putting y'all somewhere else. And go, right?
Yeah, so, yeah, so what I did was I teamed up with a woman in Central Jersey. She's I think she was the number 4 agent in the United States, 2020, Michelle Klug. And oh yeah, Jamie is a bold coach. In 2020, she was the number 4 agent in the United States. So my business runs through her team to make sure that my business doesn't fall apart up there. But I was selling $15 to $20 million a year up there before I left. And my goal was to get to Delaware. So I just Googled available team leader positions. And the very first one that popped up was Wilmington, Delaware. Interviewed for the job. I don't know if you know Jay Ritchie. He was the OP at the time. He hired somebody else for the position. When I had a conversation with him later, he said, listen, you were the perfect one for the job. I was going to hire you, except I didn't think you were ready to leave your business. And I asked him just one simple question. Did you ask me? And he had not. So I came down to be the productivity coach. So I had, that going for me. I was going to do the PC coaching. Things didn't go well for me in Wilmington. So I transferred. I joined up with Mike McGavis, who owns about 17 market centers down here. And I joined his team, started to build up. It was a slow, torturous process, trying to get it there. And yet at the same time, when I joined Place and had the accountability come back into place, which is what I was lacking, was the accountability. I think that was the key. And allowing people to hold my, my feet to the fire. That's when my career exploded here. And I was going back home, like I said, December, January, I was going back home to Jersey. Now I closed tomorrow on the 3rd property down here that Mike and I are buying together. We're going to refi it and buy 6 more in 2022. So I'm never leaving.
I love that. I love that. How did the 50 listings come about? Because you took over 50 listings this year, right? And we just heard that it was kind of torturously not working for you before that. What changed? What motivated you? What did you even do to get there?
So it was fascinating to me here. So I just went to my year-to-date tab earlier this morning just to see where I really was as far as listings taken. The number was 64.
Wow.
So obviously I took anything and everything at that point. I didn't care if the price point was wrong. Because and it's got to match your business plan. What are you going to do with it? Because to me, if I take a listing, that's also going to get me a buyer. I can provide open houses for my team. I can do so many different things once I have that listing. But what clicked about it was Katie Benson said, hey, network agents, we're having a listing contest. I don't know if you guys can tell yet, I'm a little competitive. So I believe if you're in second place, as Jeff Foxworthy puts it, you're the first place loser. So my goal was, you don't lose. So I decided I was winning the first listing competition, and I just never looked back after that. And yet I was the first place loser in the second listing competition. Jordan beat me.
So just so everybody knows, like those 64 listings were not taken by your team. Those because while this was all happening, you did not like have a team, correct? You were the listing and buyer and buyer's agent and janitor and CEO of your business, everything, right?
Yep, everything. I did 100%. I did paperwork. Amy, the VA, Amy from Atlanta, Amy Jones, she took care of all my back behind the scenes stuff for me. Thank God for her. She took care of that. And yet I wrote my contracts. She uploaded them to Command and to all the different things from Brivity and from Dotloop and everything else. But I wrote my contracts. I called the clients. I use LJS sign. They put the sign in the yard. I hung the panel. I put the lockbox on, everything soup to nuts, and it's going to be 53 closings. And I did it the hard way. Leverage is a much better way to go, and which is why I'm hiring 1 to 3 VAs this year, and I'm going to be putting on 7 to 10 agents.
Awesome. Walk us through like taking that many listings. Like, what did you have to do even in the first 30 days, 60 days, 90 days? Like, is there anything that, like, thinking back on it, how did you build that much inventory? Like, who were you calling? What were you saying? Like, anything you want to share with us?
So, the places that I missed, I'll start there because I think I could have done a lot more. The places where I missed was I was not a consistent prospector in the mornings as I should have been. I know I'm shooting all over myself right now, but I should not have been prospecting. I should have been prospecting more consistently Monday through Friday, like Adelina said earlier, 8:30 to 12. I should have been calling for sale by owners. I should have been calling expireds. And I did some of that, not nearly enough though. Most of it was circle prospecting, sphere, and referrals.
Okay.
And to me, I wasn't necessarily going for the listing. I was going for the relationship. And so my scripts that I'm using are a little bit different than the ones you'll find in bold, even though I know the bold scripts backwards, forwards, right, left, upside down, and center, and can use help getting better at them still, of course. I use a different script. I use just a conversation for the most part with some pattern interrupts and things like that in it to get the conversation to be more comfortable.
Like if you were circle prospecting right after this call, what would that sound like?
To role play one, I guess, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Absolutely. So ring.
Hello.
Hey, Adelina.
Yeah, who's this?
Hey, Adelina. Marc, Pollak with Keller Williams Realty. How are you today?
I'm good.
Awesome. Me too. I'm just enjoying this beautiful weather. How about you?
Yeah. It's nice.
It's gorgeous outside. Well, hey, listen, I don't want to take up too much of your time. Reason I'm calling is we just listed a house near you, 123 Main Street. I was curious if you knew anybody that might be looking to buy a home in our neighborhood.
Not that I can think of.
I got you. Well, listen, when the time comes for you to ultimately buy or sell a home, do you have an agent in mind?
We'll probably sell with the agent who sold us this house.
The one that sold you the house?
Yeah.
So you're in good hands at this point, right?
I think so. Yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Well, hey, listen, I could step off the curb tomorrow. God forbid, get hit by a bus. God forbid something happens to your agent. I would love to be your second choice. Would you mind if I stayed in touch?
I guess that's fine.
Awesome. What's the best email for that?
Adelina Rotar at Gmail.
Fantastic, Adelina. Listen, I'll stay in touch. If there's anything you need, a contractor, if you're looking to refinance, we have lots of ways to save you money, time, and effort. Would love to be a source for you. Fair enough?
Got it. Okay.
Awesome. You have a great day.
Thank you. Okay, so Marc, based on that, first thought that came to mind is you are assuming that their agent is never gonna like really do anything, right? Like you're assuming that they're gonna be orphaned out pretty soon.
Number one, I always assume that because we suck at follow-up. as an industry. We just do. I mean, let's call it what it is. Um, I've got people right now. I mean, what the greatest thing you could ever do, in my opinion, is I don't give closing gifts to my buyers and my sellers. I go to the other person, the person who brought the buyer to my listing. I bring them a closing gift, thank them for, being so pleasant in the transaction. And would you mind if I stayed in touch? And now I've got an email, I got a cell phone, and every Wednesday morning at 8:30, you'll get my newsletter.
Got it. Noted, noted, noted.
Yeah.
And then when you do the follow-up, right? Because you
Yep.
just got their email, like what does
Yeah.
a follow-up sound like?
So I don't even have to call them at that point. I mean, I'll call them on a quarterly basis.
Okay.
And yet I've got a newsletter that I make every single week. It takes me 5 minutes. I change out the three stories on the right, which are quick links to things that have absolutely nothing to do with real estate, just things going on around Delaware, a featured property and a description there. And then Wednesday morning at 8:30, out it goes to the entire database.
Okay.
And I use constant contact. So if they unsubscribe from that, they're not unsubscribing from the listing alerts and the market reports.
Got it. So you send them your newsletter weekly, so 52 times a year,
52
right?
times a year.
And then they're getting your market report monthly. Is that what you're doing?
I send the market report out every other week.
Okay. All right. So
And
that's
if they do a CMA, if it's a CMA request, then they get the market report every week.
okay. So just for everybody to know, that is 104 market reports. Um, and then you're trying to call them quarterly, right? So 4 calls a year essentially, right? And a quarterly call could sound like what? What would you call?
Well, I mean, it's going to be based on the notes and the conversations.
Okay.
So I mean, I'm going to look back. Was it an investor? Okay. Well, at that point, I've got things where I introduce them to my wholesaler, and my wholesaler will pay me through the company on the back end.
Mm-hmm.
So I can introduce them to my wholesaler and get paid that way. I have hard money lenders that I introduce them to. So I may have those conversations for investors. If they were thinking about selling in a year or two, it's a discussion as to where they are in the process. Has anything changed? Anything happening that might have accelerated it? Anything happening that might have slowed it down? I mean, what's going on new in your family?
Got it. Got it. Okay. So I hope everybody wrote that down. Right. You get your newsletter out 52 times a year, right? And I think Marc would be able to share like what that looks like so that so you guys can see.
Yep.
What I bet it isn't is rocket science. I bet it's something that you created once and you just, like you said, you swap out the stuff. And he does do it through constant contact. There's also MailChimp out there. What you don't want to do is you do not want to send mass emails in Brivity, because once they unsubscribe to your email, they will that unsubscribes them to the rest of your world. You want to not do that, right?
Yep.
And then the market report is through Brivity. Is that what you're doing? Okay.
Yep. I believe everything else is through Brivity.
Okay, excellent. So what I'm hearing is you are building connections with people, and then you are increasing your market share through just mind share, if you will.
Yep. My goal is to be the number 1 or number 2 person they think of every time they think about selling a house. If they're looking to put on a deck, if they're looking to do a roof, if they need a plumber, an HVAC person, whatever you need, I want to be your guy for it. So all of my touches are now coming from contributions. How can I help you? You got to give before you ask.
Did anybody, not did anybody, how often did somebody say, on the circle prospecting call that they do need help or they are going to sell? Like, does that ever happen?
Happens all the time.
Really?
All the time. So, I'll always be able to, not 100% of my circle prospecting sessions gets me that. And yet I'd be hard pressed to be able to count it. I'm going to run out of fingers and toes by the time I'm done counting the number of people that say, oh, I can use an HVAC guy. Awesome. I got this guy. And send them out that information. What's the best email? I'll send you and him an introductory email. And I like to do that. That way the HVAC guy knows I refer them.
Got it.
Because I'm going to ask the HVAC guy for referrals too.
Got it.
So I want to make sure that they know that I'm referring them. but that happens all the time. And I'm looking for tomorrow business at all times. When I'm making these calls, my main focus is on tomorrow business. And you know, you'll regularly get someone that's looking to do something now or in the next couple of months as you're making these calls, because you're not asking them to list their house. You're not asking them to buy a house. You're asking them, who do they know? And if I'm circle prospecting for a listing, I will ask, when do you see yourself moving? When do what are your real estate plans? Excuse me, I have a buyer that's looking to buy a home in our development. This market, it's insane. They're getting outbid left and right. They're 20, 30, 40, 50,000 over asking, waiving inspections, and they're still losing. Have you ever thought, or do you know of anyone that might be looking to sell a home now or in the near future? And I get people for that.
Yeah, why do you think? Because I mean, gosh, our people do circle prospect, Mark. But I think there's something where, like, we may not believe. I mean, it may be that if we don't get somebody that day, then we just feel like circle prospecting was a waste of time.
No, never a waste of time. Because if your goal is to get a listing that day, and that's your only goal with circle prospecting, and you don't get a listing, then you're going to feel that way. The fact of the matter is, I think, and I probably should have started. I focus on what I control. I don't care what they say to me. I told you, I've owned martial arts schools. I've been punched in the face. They can curse at me and hang up. I am not going to go crying. All right. So I don't care about that. They curse at me and hang up. I'll call them back, say we got disconnected. All right. So I'm going to stay on that phone. I'm going to play the game. I'm going to have fun. My favorite one is when they get belligerent and I get them calmed down and acting nice by the end. I love that. To me, that's a victory because I get to control that. I control how many times do I dial. I've dialed over 10,000 people year to date. And I track that number. I think that's the most important thing that I wasn't doing that's changed my business is I'm tracking my number. I've got two screens up. I got two screens up right now. My right side screen is the tracker. And every time I make a dial, I click it if I'm hand dialing at that moment. If I'm using my dialer at the end, I upload all my numbers into my tracker. I know how many people did I talk to today. I know how long I was working on my prospecting. I know how many people I spoke to. I know how many leads I've taken, how many leads became appointments, et cetera, et cetera. And then I can go back and calculate, well, how much did it take me to get an appointment? Okay, well, it took me 1,000 dials to get a contact. It took me 1,000 contacts to get an appointment. And those are BS numbers, by the way, they're much lower. But I know my number. So if I want to make 20 appointments this week, I know how many times I have to dial the phone because I know my pickup rate. Then I know my conversion rate. If I have to make that many dials, that's what I got to make.
Yeah. So Brandon had a question. He said, what's your ideal prospecting day? Like if you could build out an ideal prospecting day, what does that look like for you?
That is so much better than what I actually do. I love that.
No. Like if you were coaching yourself, what would you coach yourself to? And then what challenges have you found that keep you from that? And how can you resolve them, or how could somebody resolve them?
All right. So the ideal for me would be come in, run through the script that I'm going to use 2 or 3 times. And if you haven't used it for long, run through it more. Run through the script 2 or 3 times. Get on the phones by 8:30. Dial for about an hour, take a 10-15 minute break, get back on the phones for an hour, take a 10-15 minute break, do 1 more hour, and it's lunchtime. And then the afternoon would be for appointments, et cetera, et cetera.
Got it.
What gets in the way is that I'm doing it the hard way. I've been doing it the hard way. Yesterday I had a conversation with Brivity. I'm hiring my first VA. And I'm jumping right in with a full-time 40-hour-a-week VA to handle 3 facets of the business. And I let them tell me what I needed. All right. We discuss things and I let them tell me where they'd best be able to fit it. Once that one's done, we're going to hire the second VA. And then the goal is 3 by the end of 2022.
What do you think the first VA will help you with?
They're going to help with getting everybody in my Brivity database up to date with listing reports and market reports, They're going to make sure it's scrubbed. They're going to answer as soon as the call comes in. They're going to call that lead
Mm-hmm.
and get that warm introduction started. And then there's going to be the paperwork side of getting, getting the dot loop moved over to DocuSign and getting me using the proper systems to do the job.
It sounds like now that you've closed 53 units, you are going to use the leverage model
Yes, I am.
and follow the place model so that you can work smarter even.
It was that or die.
Cool. Appreciate you not dying, Mark. Appreciate you not dying.
My kids do too, I think.
Um, Aaron had a question regarding, is there anyone that you feel inspired by or anyone that's coached you along the way on your conversion techniques? Like, what can you talk about from that perspective?
So the people that have coached me the most in this last year have been, obviously my coach with Place, which is Brady Pittman. Katie Benson's been off the charts as far as inspiration and the direction and everything. And I think it's just, I've been gathering, I haven't implemented probably 10% of what Katie's put out there. I think I've been in the growth phase of learning it, absorbing it, and getting ready to. 2022 will be more of an implementation year for the leverage and everything she talked about. But those two are the ones that really got me going this year. And then when I joined Place Realty, I had a goal within 5 years that Chris Suarez and Ben Kinney would know me by face and name. And I've had the pleasure of, because of these listing contests and things like that, I've had the pleasure of having a one-on-one conversation with each.
Yeah, I mean,
So
you take
that was
64
huge.
listings in a year. I'm telling you, Ben is going to know your name, right? Like you crush it in Brivity, Ben's going to know your name, right?
Yep.
Like, I mean, that's how it works.
Oh, without a doubt, because that's where the opportunities are. If you do what you're supposed to do and the right people get to know you, the doors are going to start opening up.
Is there anything else in the Place tools or anything in Brivity that you feel like has saved you time or that has helped you increase conversion or that you see in the future do that for you? Anything that you can think of?
So right now I'm using the reminder system in Brivity. I'm starting to get better. The action plans are going to be huge for me as I start to use those more and more. I kicked those off probably in the last 3 to 6 months, a little bit more. I was doing what I call my random 3, my random 7, my random 15, and my quarterlies. Which was just, it popped up automatically every 3, 7, 15, or 90 days, whatever it was, or 30 days, reminding me to contact that person. So the beautiful thing about it is it reminded me, go into their account, all the notes are there, pick up the phone, call them, build the relationship, do something that day to push the relationship forward. And Brivity is the tool that's reminded me to do that. The auto plans, I think, by automating some of the emails, by automating some of the text messages, I believe, will make it so that I don't have to do, 150 whatever touches a year personally. I have to do 6 or 7 personally, and the rest, the heavy load gets carried by Brivity. And then my job is to keep the relationship personal and growing forward.
Are there any books that you feel like are great for prospecting or lead generating or building a business, either that you read this year or in previous years? Are you much of a book reader or how do you see all that?
So I don't read a ton. I have to get back to that. I've been playing with this one, Profit First. Ben was talking about, was it the Enchanted Gardener, I think it was.
Yeah.
And there was another one that he talked about. I started reading that and put it down, but I'm going to be picking it up again because it applies heavily to my life. But it's I think you got to read more than business books. Business books will give you the framework to run a business. I think you got to read these life books that Ben and Chris are talking about in order to build a life. But the one thing was huge for me. Understanding that there is no such thing as a work-life balance. You could be, that's a myth. You could be focused on one and then be focused on the other. And yet when you're at work, you're at work. When you're at home, be home.
One of the things that I see, a lot of it sounds like you have worked through whatever's up here, right? Because if you don't work with whatever on what's up here, like you don't have the chance of it working, right? Like what's inside comes out outside, right? And so we'll have people do I see two things happen in all of our businesses. We'll have people, make 1,000 dials, 10,000 dials, whatever that number ends up being, and not getting anything out of it. Like, I mean, there might be like 5 nurtures at the end of the day. And I'm like, whoa, wow, that feels weird, right? And it's like, until this is right, the rest of it won't come, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing is consistency, right? Like we'll have a good week and then we'll have 3 weeks where we didn't come into the office. And so then it's like, also that's up here. Any tips and tricks that you've seen where you have overcome your personal self?
So, I mean, I've always prided myself on being a bit of a grinder when it comes to the dialing. So, and I don't look at that as a bad word or a bad thing. It's just, that's what I do. When I'm going to dial, I'm going to dial, and I'm going to sit there. I'm going to have a good time. I'll sit back, I'll dance in my chair while the phone's ringing and try to make some fun out of it, because they're going to hear that smile on the other end of the line. If you're not smiling when you're dialing, they're going to hear you. I mean, have a conversation with someone with a smile on your face and then with a frown on your face, and don't let them look at you and see if they can tell the difference. They're going to tell the difference. So you have to have the right mindset. You have to be, and a bunch of you just took hold. That it was all about it. It's mindset first, action second. And so, yeah, you definitely have to have the right mindset going forward, because otherwise you will burn out. This year, I had my burnout day in the middle of my 13th bold, and it had nothing to do with bold. It had to do with the fact that launch and place and everything else is bold on steroids. And I slept for 20 hours on a Saturday because I hit the wall and I was done. And that was in the middle of November, and had a great 20-hour nap and came back to work. But yeah, you have to look at your big picture. What are your goals? What happens to you? What happens to your family if you don't show up? What happens if you don't hit whatever your number of sales is, or your GCI, whatever that number is? What happens to little Johnny, or your husband, your wife? What happens to mom and dad if you're supporting them at this point? What happens to them if you don't hit your goals? You got to make it bigger than you.
How often do you have like days where you just mail it in, where you're just like, don't feel like working today? See ya. Like, how often does that happen?
This year, I think I mailed it in 2 or 3 times. It hasn't happened much.
Okay.
I mean, but you have to realize I came off of a year where I just like, what the blank. I've been working my tail off. I've been doing 15, 20 million a year up in Jersey. I'm doing nothing in Delaware. Something's got to give. Something has to change. And there was no way that I was mailing in very many days in 2021. My favorite, you guys took bold recently. My favorite bold law: you can have reasons or results, and you can't have both. So
Sure.
Either show up or step out, because I mean, now I'm building a team here. If I show up and mail it in, my team gets to see that, then they get to mail it.
Yeah.
Because law of the lid. I mean, if I don't show up, if I don't come to play full out, then my team gets to mail it in too.
Yeah, Ben says something. He says, at some point you have to be tired of your own BS.
Yep.
Like literally, like that's, he's like, you just have to get pissed enough that this is gonna be the year that you're gonna actually do what you said you were gonna do, and you're actually gonna do it. Because it doesn't matter how much coaching you have, it doesn't matter how great resources you have if you don't show up for it, right?
Exactly. And if you show up, like, use the 80-20 rule. You show up 80% of the time and focus on your 20%. You're going to have the best year of your life.
Yeah. And you just happen to choose them to be listings, right? Like that was you're like, I'm going to show up for listings. That's what I'm going to do. And you made it your mission this year. And next year is a new mission, right? Which is awesome.
Yep. Next year's about the same type of, I'm still going to list 50, 60 houses next year. The goal is much higher than that. The goal is actually 10 a month. Um, I'm still going to do my listings. I will not be working with buyers next year. All right. So everybody on my team that shows up, does what they're supposed to do, is going to be working with those buyers.
Got it. Got it. Faith, Aaron asked, when you make it larger than yourself, how do you manage the weight of that? Like the pressure of having to take care of others, right? And all of that.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even notice that. Because if I take care of myself and I do what I need to do for myself, everything else will take care of itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you don't have to work harder. You have to be smart about where you're working. So, I mean, ask yourself that question. How many times a day do you get up and go to the water? How many times a day do you walk around the office? How many times a day are you doing something that has nothing to do with selling real estate? And we don't have to answer that out loud, and yet answer that for yourself. And listen, I don't spend 8, 9, 10 hours selling real estate. I think if you spend 1 or 2 hours really working on your business and in your 20%, you'll probably make more than if you spend a full day at the office just doing the 80% work.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Any questions from the group? Anything you guys want to pop into chat? Anything that you took out of this, or you want to share? You can either unmute or raise your hand. You know, I think everyone's looking for the magic pill. Have you found it?
Yes and no. So, A, there's no magic pill. B, show up and do this. You know, Gary wrote a book called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. If we all implemented, we'd all be millionaires.
Yeah.
The magic pill is show up and do the work. Yeah, don't show up and hang out. Don't show up to make friends at the office, which isn't a bad thing, and yet that's not going to put money and food on your table. You know, show up and do the work. Last week you had a wonderful person on. I love one thing that she said. If I get one listing a week, if I get one or contract, whatever it was a week, I won the week. I don't have to come to work for the rest of the week. If you win your day at 9:30, go home.
Yeah.
And come back strong the next day.
I hear that. I hear that.
I thought that was huge.
Jordan, you have a question. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just curious. You talked about implementing auto plans or working towards that, because I kind of have the same thoughts of when I prospect and make really good conversations and then market reports. But I was just curious what your auto plans might look like as far as your automated text and stuff like that would be.
All right. So I am not the guy that is going to reinvent the wheel. I am not going to write my own auto plan because that's in the 80%. Brivity has a ton of auto plans already made. And there's some really cool ones by this guy who sold 1 or 2 houses by the name of Ben Kinney. And if you take a look at the auto plans there that are already out there, the ones that I use the most are buying in 1 to 3, 3 to 6, 6 to 12 months, or whatever those parameters are. It says buying in, or selling in. So hot seller, nurture, watch sellers, hot, nurture, and watch buyers. Those are the auto plans that I'm using, depending upon what they come in on, off of my call, off of the IDX, whatever they're coming in on will determine which one of those I put them on. In reality, though, I'm using the action plan that has already been created for me.
Yeah, makes sense. Will you pop your contact information in the chat so that we can all save it? Number one, if you guys are running into, you have a huge listing goal and you're running up against a roadblock, I bet Marc would take your call.
Absolutely.
And number two, he's in Delaware. So think about, you're making your calls and you have somebody that's moving or selling in Delaware or wants to invest in Delaware. He would love to connect with you on that. And number 3, we'd love to have you back in the future to see how did that go? Like, did you do it again, or was this a one-hit wonder? I don't think it was a one-hit wonder, because one-hit wonders don't do it month after month after month. But that was really good, really good. Anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah. So basically, it's do the work. B, show up. I guess A, show up. B, do the work. And focus on your 20%. And listen, if your 20% is buyers, that's awesome. Focus on your 20%. Also, just so you guys are aware, I do have the ability to handle New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Maryland. If I trip, I land in any of those states. It's that close. Yeah, it's not like Texas. Delaware is getting carpeted next week. So little tiny state. If you guys want a copy of my newsletter, send me your email address. I've got everything there. I'm happy to add you to the constant contact list. I'll send you the Delaware newsletter. One thing I do on there on the left side, I put websites for links to all my contractors' websites so that they know they're being marketed, and I add them so they can see their link. But it's just show up and do the work. That's the magic pill. That's what I'd like you to leave you with.
I love that. I love that. Guys, this was great.
And real, if you guys can, I see these popping up here, but if you guys can email me, that would be a lot easier for me to just reply.
Yeah, he's not going to be able to see the chat box.
Yeah, and let me know what you're looking for. Do you want a copy of the scripts I'm using? I'm happy to share those. Do you want a copy of the newsletter? Whatever it is you're looking for, I'll pop them in as an attachment, to the email as I reply, and I'll add you right into the constant contact so you can see the newsletter each week and see that almost nothing changes.
I love that. I love that. That's awesome. This is our last one, so we're not going to be here next Thursday or the following Thursday. We will be back January 6th. We're going to have Marion from California be our guest speaker. And I met her on a top agent scripting call, and she is just on fire like Marc. She's amazing with her past clients. That is her superpower. And she's going to share what her past client calls sound like, what her quarterly pop buys look like, what her system is around her VIPs, and how she services her clients and has a price point 20% above the average in her area. So that's what you have to look forward to. So potentially what you could do during the holiday season is maybe tag your VIPs. If you haven't already tagged your VIPs in your Brivity, that might be a really good start in preparation for that call. And while you are thinking about Marc's call, think about, okay, what goals did I set for myself for 2022? What's preventing me from showing up like the winner I need to be to hit those goals, right? And it doesn't mean everything's going perfect in your life. Nothing is going perfect for no one. Elizabeth may sound like her life is awesome. Casey might sound like his life is awesome. Gus might sound like his life is awesome. The reality is we all got shit. All of us. We have stuff, guys. And like, we can't allow depression to last forever. We can't allow anxiety to last forever. We can't allow not coming into the office to last forever. We can't allow not making our calls to last forever. Like, then we just need to get a job, and not in a negative sense. Like, I don't mean that, like, guys, see you later, bye, right? It's you guys, like, this is such a great career, right? But you are the boss. Like, somebody said the other day, how do I get a raise? And Casey was like, well, ask your boss. Oh, I am the boss, right? You do the work that's needed and you get a raise. Amazing. It's awesome. We have the best opportunity, more than anybody else, to be able to create the life that we want. Like, that is awesome. It's a blessing. And not only do we get to create the life we want, we get to create it with people who care about us and who want us to create the life and who will support us there. But we got to show up for the life we want to create. So have an awesome week, awesome holiday season, and we will be back January 6th. Can't wait to see you guys. Thank you, Marc. Thank you, everybody, for showing up today. We'll see you next time. Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas to